For the past 20 years, U.S. Central Command has been one of the busiest of the U.S. military's regionally aligned headquarters. Things are starting to shift, however, as a greater emphasis on China and Russia. Still, with things bubbling up always in the Middle East, this is going to be a busy command. On June 11th, I spoke via phone to Marine General Kenneth McKenzie, the commander of U.S. Central Command. We spoke from his Tampa, Florida headquarters at MacDill Air Force Base on a wide range of topics: the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the future of the interpreters who have helped the U.S. out over all these years, a drone attack in Iraq, and the general future of operations in that part of the world. One of the questions that I asked McKenzie was whether the U.S. would conduct kinetic action against either the Taliban or ISIS-K if Afghan forces were being overrun. What he told me is that the only way the U.S. would take such action is if U.S. national interests were at stake and the Afghan forces could not prevent something bad from happening.
Sure, those are actually, as you will appreciate, Howard, policy decisions, not military decisions. I will tell you this. Right now, what we're planning to do after we withdraw is keep pressure on Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And that would be what we'd be doing going back into doing Afghanistan. When those entities presented actionable threats against the United States, we'd be prepared to go in there and take action if our Afghan partners are unable to do that. And that will be the limit of our kinetic actions in Afghanistan.
So you're not ruling out there still could be kinetic actions undertaken by the U.S. under certain circumstances?
I am completely silent on that. I would tell you that the only thing we're planning for right now is the ability to continue operations against Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Would you rule that out?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right guy to ask, Howard.
Recently, there was an attack on the Baghdad Diplomatic Support Center, and I asked McKenzie whether that was a drone strike. He confirmed it and said it showed a greater issue that the region faces with influence from Iran.
The one thing I'll point out is, the actual people who are responsible for defending us there is the government of Iraq. The government of Iraq. And they do a pretty good job of trying to minimize these attacks. They were not successful in this case. And of course, we always retain the ability to defend ourselves wherever we are and under whatever circumstances we are. These attacks are troubling going forward, and what they represent is, for well over the last year and a half, Iran has sought to force us to leave Iraq, and they sought to do that through political means. And so now that they recognize that they're not going to get there politically, they're shifting to a military approach, and that's just where we are right now. And this UAV attack, and I can tell you it was a UAV attack, but I'm really not in a position today to give you much more information on it right now, is representative of that. And so that's concerning to us as we go forward.
Do you anticipate the potential of kinetic action with Iran in Iraq or elsewhere as they ramp these attacks up?
So that's a question probably not for me. That's really a high level decision for the United States that would be made well above the level of U.S. Central Command.
I imagine you have contingencies in case such a situation would arise.
We have contingencies for everything.
One of the lingering questions about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is the fate of the thousands of men and women who served as interpreters and in other functions helping U.S. forces, and now are fearful for their lives as the U.S. is no longer there to protect them.
Have you presented plans to SecDef yet for evacuating the interpreters if so tasked? Can you share those plans? And then what is your message to those people who are waiting? Have you presented the plans yet to SecDef?
So we have workable plans to evacuate any scale of people that would be directed to do. It's one of the things that we've done. I've talked to the Secretary about it. The actual decision about who's going to come out, whether they would come out, and how that would work, that's not a Department of Defense decision. That's a Department of State decision. Ultimately, at a level above the Department of State. I can tell you this. The Department of Defense is prepared to undertake any task that we would be required to do in coordination with a presidential decision.
What's your message for those who worked with the U.S. and risked their lives and are now waiting?
Well, I certainly value those Afghans I've worked with, and down through the years I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of them too. I would say this: now is a time when it is incumbent upon Afghans to defend their country, and this is going to be a stern test for them. I think they're going to enter a period of great risk now, but I think it is they can defend their country. It's not going to be easy, but they can certainly do that.
As the U.S. military looks to shift emphasis to counter influence by China and Russia, one thing remains clear. The Middle East will always be a restive and dangerous area, and the U.S. Central Command will continue to play a key role in U.S. military operations. For Military Times, this is Managing Editor Howard Altman.